For a moment, I couldn't move. Every instinct screamed at me to climb back up, get into the ambulance, and drive until the forest disappeared behind me. But another thought refused to leave my mind. If there really were children down there, every second mattered. I tightened my grip on the flashlight and started down the narrow stone staircase. The air grew colder with every step. Not winter cold, different, heavy, the kind of cold that settles inside your chest. The flashlight beam barely reached the bottom. The stairs seemed much longer than they should have been. 30 steps, 40, 50, finally, my boots touched solid concrete. The room below looked nothing like the basement above. The walls were reinforced with thick concrete. Old military ventilation pipes ran across the ceiling. Rust covered everything. It looked like an abandoned Soviet-era shelter. The silence was overwhelming. Then, I noticed something impossible. Fresh footprints. Small ones. Children's boots. Dozens of them. Leading away from the staircase. I knelt beside one of the prints. The snow from the sole had already melted. It was recent. Very recent. Someone had walked here only minutes ago. Marta. I called quietly. No answer. Only the distant echo of dripping water. Following the footprints, I entered a long corridor. Old electrical cables hung from the ceiling. Several doors stood open. One room contained broken bunk beds. Another was filled with empty crates marked with faded Soviet military symbols. Everything smelled of damp concrete and smoke. Then the corridor ended. A massive steel blast door stood slightly open. Warm light escaped through the narrow gap. Warm light. Underground. I slowly pushed the heavy door. It groaned loudly. The room beyond stole the air from my lungs. Candles. Dozens of them. Burning across the floor. Blankets neatly folded against one wall. Fresh bread. Water containers. Medical supplies. Someone had been living here. Recently. In the center of the room stood a wooden table. On top rested a large paper map of the Chernihiv region. Roads had been marked with red pencil. Safe routes. Destroyed bridges. Russian checkpoints. Civilian shelters. Somebody had carefully documented everything. Beside the map lay a small notebook. Its cover was stained with mud. I opened it. Every page contained names. Families. Dates. Evacuation times. Coordinates. Most entries ended with one word. Safe. Others. Ended differently. Missing. No contact. Roadblock. Near the final page. My heart skipped a beat. There was a fresh entry. Written in blue ink. March 18, 2020 to Volunteer Team 7 Paramedic. Taras Melnik Bello. Another line. Arrived at 3:17. I stared at the page. My hands began to shake. That was impossible. Nobody knew we had been dispatched until after the emergency call. Nobody knew my name. Nobody knew exactly when we arrived. Yet. It had already been written. The final line remained unfinished, only for words. He finally found. Nothing else. The sentence simply stopped. A sudden draft swept through the room. Every candle flickered at once. The notebook slammed shut by itself. Then I heard a familiar voice. Taras. Oleksii. This time it wasn't a whisper. It came from the corridor behind me. Clear. Desperate. I need your help. I rushed outside. Oleksii. The corridor was empty. His voice echoed again. This way. The sound came from the room with the bunk beds. I ran toward it. As I crossed the doorway, my flashlight beam froze on something hanging from one of the bed frames. Oleksii's jacket. His volunteer medic jacket. I grabbed it. Still warm. A radio was clipped to the chest pocket. It suddenly crackled. Static. Then. Oleksii single quotes S voice. Not from the hallway. From the radio itself. If you're hearing this, don't trust anyone who already knows your name. The transmission ended. Before I could react. Every candle in the shelter went out at the exact same moment. Darkness swallowed everything. And from somewhere deep inside the underground shelter, a heavy steel door slowly began to open. The sound rolled through the underground shelter like distant thunder. Creak. The massive steel door opened only a few inches. Then it stopped. Complete silence returned. I stood frozen. The flashlight in my trembling hand barely illuminated the corridor ahead. Oleksii. No answer. Only the slow drip of water somewhere behind the walls. I forced myself toward the opening. Every instinct screamed that I shouldn't, but I had come too far to turn back. As I reached the steel door, I noticed something scratched into the metal. Not carved, scratched recently with a knife. 3 words, keep them quiet. My heartbeat quickened. I pushed the door wider. The hinges groaned loudly. Beyond it stretched another corridor. Much older. The concrete walls were cracked. Sections of the ceiling had collapsed years ago. Electrical wires hung like vines. And then I saw the photographs. Dozens of them, pinned to the wall with rusted nails. Entire families, children smiling beside bicycles, grandparents standing in gardens. School graduations. Birthday parties. Normal lives. Before the war, many of the faces had names written underneath. Some had dates. Others simply had one word. Found. Evacuated. Unknown. Then my flashlight landed on the last photograph. I stopped breathing. It showed our ambulance, the exact ambulance parked outside. Oleksii stood beside it. So did I. The photograph looked recent, yet something was horribly wrong. The driver's door was open. Only. There was no one sitting inside. On the back of the photograph someone had written, "They arrived too late." "No," I whispered. "This isn't possible." A sudden voice answered from the darkness. "It depends." I spun around. An elderly man stood at the end of the corridor. Gray beard, thick winter coat, a faded medic armband wrapped around his left sleeve. He held an old oil lantern. Its flame burned without flickering. He studied me calmly. As if he'd been expecting me. "Who are you?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked past me toward the notebook still lying on the floor. "You found the records. You wrote them." He nodded slowly. "For those we saved, and for those we couldn't." I stepped closer. "The little girl. Marta, where is she?" His eyes lowered. "Still waiting." "For what?" "For someone to remember." A cold chill spread through my body. "I don't understand." "You will." He turned and began walking deeper into the tunnel. "Come," against every ounce of common sense. I followed. The corridor eventually opened into an enormous underground chamber. I stopped in disbelief. Hundreds of wooden boxes lined the walls. Medical supplies. Blankets. Generators. Water. Tanks. Everything hidden beneath the forest. A forgotten evacuation shelter. In one corner stood dozens of children's drawings taped carefully onto concrete pillars. One showed a blue and yellow flag. Another showed an ambulance. Another simply showed a smiling man carrying a little girl. Across the top, written in uneven English, were the words, "Thank you for finding us." I stared at the drawing. The handwriting looked identical to the note inside the pink backpack. The old man noticed. "Marta drew that. But we haven't found anyone." He looked at me with tired eyes. "Haven't you?" Before I could answer, the radio on my vest suddenly crackled. This time the signal was perfectly clear. "Unit 7. It was dispatch. Loud and clear. Relief flooded through me. "This is Tara's. I copy." Her breathing sounded heavy. "We've been trying to reach you for almost 4 hours. I frowned. "What?" I looked at my watch. It still read 4:06 a.m. The dispatcher continued. "It's after 8 in the morning." My heart stopped. "No, that's impossible. You've been missing since before dawn." I looked toward the old man. He wasn't surprised. Almost as if he already knew what she would say. The dispatcher spoke again. "Military search teams located your ambulance." I swallowed. "And Oleksii." Silence. A very long silence. Finally, she answered quietly. "Tara's. There was no second paramedic assigned to your vehicle." I slowly turned toward the old man. His expression didn't change. He simply sighed. And said the words that would haunt me long after that day. "Now you finally understand why he never left your side." I stared at the old man. "What do you mean?" "He never left my side." He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he slowly walked toward a wooden cabinet standing against the far wall. Its doors were swollen from years of moisture. He opened them carefully. Inside were dozens of personal belongings. Children's shoes, scarves, medical kits, broken watches, volunteer badges. Each item had been carefully labeled, recovered, returned, unidentified. The old man reached onto one of the shelves and picked up a laminated ID card. Without saying a word, he handed it to me. I looked down. My stomach dropped. It was Oleksii's volunteer identification. The photograph was unmistakable. The same calm smile, the same dark hair, the same blue eyes. But it wasn't the photo that made my blood run cold. It was the date printed beneath it. Killed during evacuation mission. March 8, 2022. 10 days earlier. "No," I whispered. "That's impossible. I worked with him yesterday." The old man looked at me with quiet sympathy. "So, you remember. I drove here with him." He spoke to dispatch. He carried the medical bags. My voice broke. The old man gently shook his head. "You saw him. That doesn't mean everyone else could." The room suddenly felt much smaller. I tried to remember the drive. The dispatcher. Had she ever actually spoken directly to Oleksii? Or had every answer come from me? Images flashed through my mind. The ambulance leaving the station. The empty passenger seat. No. That couldn't be right. I remembered talking to him, laughing with him, asking for directions. Didn't I? The memories no longer fit together. My breathing became faster. I don't understand. Double quotes. You survived the attack, the old man said quietly. But barely. You lost consciousness after the artillery strike. When you woke up. Double quotes. You believed he had survived with you. I shook my head violently. No, we treated civilians together. We searched the forest together. The old man nodded. And you did. The answer made even less sense. He pointed toward the wall of photographs. Every volunteer leaves something behind. Some leave supplies, some leave maps, some leave hope, and a few. Double quotes. Refuse to leave the people they promised to protect. I stared at him. You think. Double quotes. He interrupted softly. I don't think. I've seen it. Silence filled the underground chamber. Then, a child's laughter echoed somewhere behind us. Not frightening. Gentle. Happy. The old man smiled for the first time. They're awake. Who? The families. He led me through another steel doorway. I stopped in disbelief. The underground chamber opened into a huge hidden shelter. Dozens of civilians were there. Children wrapped in blankets. Mothers quietly comforting babies. Elderly couples sitting beside portable heaters. Volunteer medics moved from person to person checking injuries. They all looked exhausted, but alive. One little boy looked up as I entered. His face lit up instantly. The ambulance came. Others turned toward me. A woman covered her mouth with both hands. I told them someone would find us. Another began crying. An elderly man slowly stood and shook my hand with both of his. We thought everyone had forgotten us. Before I could answer, a familiar voice spoke behind me. You made it. I turned so quickly that my flashlight slipped from my hand. Oleksii stood in the doorway, exactly as before, wearing his medic jacket, smiling. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally I whispered. They said you died. He smiled sadly. I know. You knew. I've always known. My chest tightened. Then why didn't you tell me? He looked around the shelter, at the frightened children, at the exhausted parents, then back at me. Because if I had. Double quotes. You would have stopped looking. A deep rumble suddenly shook the ceiling. Dust poured from the concrete above. The old man looked toward the exit. They've started shelling again. The shelter fell silent. Children instinctively moved closer to their parents. Another explosion echoed somewhere outside. Much closer this time. Oleksii looked directly into my eyes. We don't have much time. We have to get them out. But there are too many. There are 26 civilians. For can't walk. 1 woman is about to give birth. The road north is. Mind. The bridge east collapsed yesterday. I stared at him. How do you know all that? He gave the same calm smile I'd seen 1,000 times before. I've been watching. Then he handed me the folded map from the table. One route had been marked in fresh blue ink. A narrow forestry road. One that wasn't shown on any military maps. Oleksii tapped the route with one finger. This is the only way. And after today. No one will ever find it again. For several seconds, I simply stared at the map. The blue line wound through the forest like a forgotten scar. It avoided every destroyed bridge, every known checkpoint, every place where fighting had been reported during the last week. It was too perfect, almost as if someone had already driven it. Oleksii folded the map and pressed it into my hands. You have exactly 40 minutes. What happens after that? He looked toward the ceiling. Another explosion rolled across the forest above us. The artillery will reach this area. The old man nodded. They're moving closer. Without wasting another second, we gathered everyone inside the shelter. 26 civilians, 9 children, 3 elderly men who could barely stand, 1 pregnant woman named Irina whose contractions had already started, a teenage boy with a badly infected leg wound. Everyone looked exhausted. Most hadn't seen daylight in nearly a week. As we prepared to leave, the little girl stepped out from behind one of the concrete pillars. Marta. She still held the small teddy bear attached to the pink backpack. She quietly walked over to me. I have something. She placed a tiny brass key into my hand. It was old, worn smooth with age. What does it open? She smiled. You'll know. Before I could ask another question, she turned and disappeared back into the crowd. The old man looked at the key and quietly nodded. Keep it. You'll need it before sunrise. Outside the hidden shelter, dawn had begun to color the sky a pale gray. Snow covered the forest in silence. Our ambulance still stood exactly where we had left it. Its engine was cold. But something immediately caught my attention. Military tire tracks. Fresh ones. Several vehicles had stopped beside the ambulance during the night. Yet there was no one around. No soldiers. No search teams. Only the tracks remained. I opened the driver's door. The keys were still in the ignition. The radio suddenly came alive. Unit 7. It was dispatch. Her voice sounded relieved. Terrace. Answer if you can hear me. This is Terrace. We've found the survivors. There was a pause. Then I heard someone crying quietly on the other end of the radio. We thought we'd lost you. What time is it? 8:43. I checked my watch. It still read for 27 a.m. Time refused to make sense. We're evacuating 26 civilians. Another long silence. Finally the dispatcher answered. Military command confirms there are no recorded civilians left in that sector. I looked behind me. 26 frightened people stood waiting beside the ambulance. Children wrapped in blankets. Parents carrying backpacks. The pregnant woman leaned against a tree, breathing through another contraction. They're here. I can see them. The dispatcher hesitated. Terra's ... double quotes our reconnaissance drone only sees one person. A chill spread through my body. One person. I slowly turned around. The civilians were still there. Every single one of them, looking directly at me. The little boy waved. His mother adjusted the blanket around his shoulders. The old man stood calmly beside the group. Everything looked completely real. Then Oleksii quietly stepped beside me. Don't listen to the radio. What? They only see what remains. His voice was calm, almost gentle. We see what still needs saving. I looked at him. What does that mean? Instead of answering, he pointed toward the road. Far away, through the trees, headlights appeared. 3 military trucks, moving slowly toward us. Relief flooded through me. They found us. Oleksii didn't smile. No, they found the ambulance. I frowned. Isn't that the same thing? He looked at me for several long seconds, then quietly said, It depends ... double quotes ... which version of us they find first. Before I could ask what he meant, the brass key in my pocket suddenly became warm, very warm, almost a hot to touch. At the exact same moment, the glove compartment of the ambulance unlocked by itself with a loud metallic click. Neither Oleksii nor I had touched it. The compartment slowly swung open, revealing an old cassette recorder. Its red recording light was blinking. Someone had left it running. I stared at the cassette recorder. It looked ancient. Gray plastic, scratches across the cover, a faded label on the front simply read, Unit 7. The red recording light blinked slowly. Once, twice, 3 times, then stopped. I looked at Oleksii. Did you leave this here? He shook his head. It was already waiting. Carefully, I pressed the play button. The tape hissed for several seconds. Then ... voices. At first I couldn't understand them. Too much static. Too much interference. Suddenly ... I recognized the first voice. Mine. This is Unit 7 responding. The recording continued. It was our dispatch from earlier that night. The emergency call. The drive toward Yahidny. Every word. Every radio transmission. I frowned. How is this possible? Then another voice appeared. Oleksii's. Except, he wasn't speaking to me. He was speaking directly into the recorder. If someone finds this ... double quotes ... don't stop the search. My heart skipped. That sentence had never happened. At least, I didn't remember it. The tape continued. Heavy breathing. Artillery exploding somewhere nearby. The ambulance engine struggling over rough roads. Then, a deafening blast. The entire recording distorted. Metal twisting. Glass shattering. Someone screamed. The sound was unbearable. Then ... complete silence. For nearly 20 seconds. After that, a weak voice. Mine. Oleksii ... double quotes another pause. Then his reply. I'm here. The recording crackled violently. His next words were almost impossible to hear. You have to keep driving. But you're bleeding. No, listen to me. If you stop now ... double quotes ... they single quotes LL never find the children. The tape hissed again. Then another explosion. The recorder clicked. Silence. End of recording. Neither of us moved. Finally, I looked at Oleksii. I don't remember any of this. I know. You said we crashed. He slowly nodded. We never made it to the village. What? The shell hit us before dawn. I shook my head. No ... we've been together all night. His eyes filled with sadness. Not exactly. Pieces of memory suddenly began forcing their way back. The bright flash. The ambulance spinning sideways. The windshield exploding. Snow. Smoke. Someone pulling me from the wreckage. Someone shouting my name. I dropped to one knee. My head pounded. No. Oleksii crouched beside me. You survived. You don't have to remember everything. But I left you. You didn't. I stayed. He smiled. The difference matters. Before I could answer, the military trucks reached the clearing. Engines stopped. Doors slammed. Several Ukrainian soldiers jumped out with rifles ready. One captain immediately ran toward me. Me, Dick. Are you injured? I looked back toward the civilians. They're over there. I pointed. Children. Families. The captain frowned. He followed my hand, then looked back at me. There isn't anyone there. What? I turned. The clearing was empty. No mothers. No children. No old man. No Marta. Only fresh snow. Stretching between the trees. No. They were standing right here. The soldiers exchanged worried glances. One of them quietly asked, Captain. Should we call another medic? The captain ignored him. He looked directly at me. We found your ambulance nearly 6 kilometers from the road. What? It crashed into a ditch. I stared at him. That's impossible. We drove here. The captain slowly shook his head. No. You've been unconscious inside the vehicle since last night. He pointed toward the ambulance. Its entire front end was crushed. The windshield shattered. The driver's side covered in dried blood. I stepped backward. No. I looked toward Oleksii. He still stood exactly where he had been, calm, silent. The soldiers walked straight through him, without even noticing. That's when I finally understood. They couldn't see him. They never had. Oleksii smiled gently. I told you. They only found one survivor. Another cold wind swept through the clearing. The cassette recorder suddenly clicked by itself. The tape began playing again. Only this time, it wasn't my voice coming through the speaker. It was Marta's. Soft, calm, almost smiling. You came back, just like you promised. For several long seconds, no one spoke. The soldiers stood around the damaged ambulance, watching me with growing concern. The cassette recorder continued to hiss softly. Then Marta's voice came again, clearer this time. The map. Static. Don't let them lose it. The recording stopped. The tape reached its end with a dull mechanical click. I looked down at my hands. The folded map was still there, exactly where Oleksii had placed it. I unfolded it carefully. The blue route remained visible. Every hidden trail, every abandoned forestry road, every place marked with a small red cross. The captain stepped beside me. What are you looking at? I handed him the map. He frowned. I've never seen this before. Another soldier leaned closer. Captain. These aren't military roads. The captain traced one of the blue lines with his finger. Where did you get this? I slowly turned toward Oleksii. He stood beside the ambulance exactly as before, hands in his jacket pockets, watching quietly. When I looked back, the captain was still waiting for an answer. I found it. He studied my face for several seconds, then folded the map. We're taking this to headquarters. If these routes are real. There may still be civilians trapped farther north. I nodded. They're real. I know they are. The captain signaled to his men. Within minutes the soldiers began searching the surrounding forest. One of them suddenly shouted, Captain, we found something. Everyone hurried toward the edge of the clearing, half buried beneath the snow. They uncovered another steel hatch, hidden beneath branches, almost invisible. The captain looked surprised. There's a bunker down here. Soldiers forced the hatch open. Cold air rushed upward, exactly as it had before. One by one they disappeared underground. Several minutes passed. Then someone shouted from below, medical supplies. Another voice echoed upward, blankets, and food. Finally, the captain climbed back out. His face had completely changed. There are signs people lived here recently, but they're gone. He looked toward me. If we hadn't found this place. We never would have searched this sector. I quietly glanced toward Oleksii. He smiled, just once. The same smile he'd worn every time we'd successfully saved a patient. You did it, he said. I couldn't have. You already did. Another silence settled over the forest. The first rays of morning sunlight broke through the pine trees. For the first time that night, the darkness began to disappear. I looked back toward him. Will I see you again? Oleksii looked at the sunrise. I hope not. I frowned. He chuckled softly. Because if you do. It means someone else needs help. For the first time since the nightmare had begun, I smiled. Then a warm breeze passed through the clearing. The snow drifted gently across the road. I blinked. Oleksii was gone. Only empty air remained. Months later, military engineers confirmed that the hidden bunker had once served as an emergency evacuation shelter during the first weeks of the invasion. The routes marked on the map led to several isolated villages that had been cut off after bridges were destroyed. Over the following weeks, dozens of civilians were evacuated using those forgotten forest roads. Some of the soldiers jokingly called the map the ghost route. No one ever discovered who originally drew it. As for the pink backpack, the search teams never found it, nor the teddy bear, nor any trace of Marta. The official records of the village listed one family named Kovalenko. Their 8-year-old daughter had disappeared during the first days of the occupation. She was never found. Sometimes ... When I transport medical supplies through the forest north of Chernihiv, I still drive along that same gravel road. The school is nothing more than broken bricks now. The trees have begun reclaiming the land. Nature has a way of hiding even the deepest scars. But every single time I pass that stretch of road ... My ambulance radio crackles for just a second. Always at 3:17 a.m., always with the same burst of static. And once, only once, I heard a little girl's voice, barely louder than the wind. "Thank you for answering." I never replied. I simply kept driving, because after everything that happened, I finally understood something that every medic learns sooner or later. Sometimes the most important rescue isn't the one you remember. It's the one someone else survives long enough to remember for you. The end.